I'm with a Knesset member, Hanoch Milwidsky. What is your position here at the Knesset and your responsibilities, first of all?
Well, I'm a member of the Security Committee, what we call internal committee, Constitution Committee, and the Finance Committee. These are all major committees in the Knesset. So it's now, we know, with all that's happening with the judicial reform and all that very strong debates and protests, and a very interesting process that the Israeli democracy is going through. It's right in the center of things. So it's very, very enthusiastic for one. It's also a very big responsibility. And what I think I did not expect as someone new coming into this is the intensity of things. It's all very intense. It's all very, very emotional. And it's come to a point that it's, I think Israeli society now is facing like a very important and crucial place on where we're heading from this. Can we somehow find new grounds to unite our society again and find new things that can unite us, or we're going into a very dangerous and unpredicted place?
Very challenging issues to deal with. You're talking about the judicial reform. I had an interview with the Knesset member Simcha Rotman about this issue. Very hot issue in the United States with the White House not wanting the judicial reform to seem to move forward. I know you've been having a lot of protesters here as well. So you do have a lot of challenges here on several fronts here.
Yes.
So,
the protests, what happened in the beginning is people were misled. They were misled to think that we want to hurt democracy. We do not want to hurt democracy.
Yeah.
What we want to do is we want to return the balance, to have the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, again free to legislate without judicial advisors basically overriding the Knesset legislation by their legal opinion. That is something, nobody chooses them, and it's not like in the States that when an administration leaves, all the top bureaucrats and the legal advisors leave with him. Here they are permanent, they stay, and that gives them a lot of power. And what happened is that a lot of them have their own opinion, and because they stand in very crucial places, they can impose their opinion on the Knesset members, on the elected government. So what we want to do is we want to bring back democracy. We want to bring back the power to the people by its elected members, not by other people that were hired to do a very specific thing. And because of time, they now have a power to impose their world of opinion on the elected government. This is what we want to deal with. We want to strengthen democracy and not override it by any way.
I've been aware of protests here that's been going on for a little while, and billboards along the roads, maybe promoting Prime Minister Netanyahu as a dictator or something to overthrow this government. There's been, of course, previous intervention during the time when he was here before Obama administration, and not very friendly to Israel. I know there's been a lot of serious issues to deal with. What is your main concern about how anti-Semitism plays in all this?
Well, what we saw in the last few weeks of the very aggressive campaign, the opposition parties and what you call protesters did with the Orthodox Jews, people and their elected officials in the Knesset and the government, that was internal anti-Semitism. You cannot describe it in any other word. It was pure hatred from Jews to other Jews. And that's the thing I talked before. What happened now these past few months is that this old hatred that was always there was completely unleashed. You wouldn't talk about that. It wasn't polite. It wasn't done to hate so much in public what we see now. You know, I have protesters because I'm in the committees I mentioned, because I'm a member of the coalition committee to the president's house where we try to reach a mutual agreement about the judicial reform. I have protests under my house twice a week. That's fine. But lately I got messages from their internal groups saying they're now stalking my kids. They want to know when I bring them to school. They want to know where I park my car and what's my registration number. That's crazy. That's criminal. And these are normal people. They aren't just, weirdos for some place. They all have a job. Some of them are my neighbors. And all of this is because I think differently from them on the judicial issue. That's crazy. And that's the thing we need to address and stop. And, say it as it is. These are not protests. This is dangerous stuff we need to be aware of and address seriously.
It kind of reminds me, and I want to inform you all there. You're aware what happened in the Supreme Court decision Roe v. Wade. There was a stalking and going after the Supreme Court judges at their homes. That kind of reminds me of what you've been experiencing, being harassed whatsoever, just for being involved with, like you said, you're wanting to return, have this be an issue of democracy, but what are your concerns about outside influence with this billboard campaign, with wanting to stir up these protests? Other governments involved with this?
I don't like to talk about things I don't know for certain. So I don't know if there's governments, but I do know there's big money, big foreign money coming into this. To have these protests, all these actions, and more you see the very dominant people in these protests, you see suddenly that they are hired by this organization, they are getting paid by that office of, how do you say that, public relations office, and you see the big money there. I used I've been to a few protests myself. I organized a few protests. It costs a lot of money. And to have what they're doing week after week, it's hundreds of millions of shekels. And that's that's not money coming from any private pocket. It's not, mass donations. It's somebody's organizations funding this in order, as I see it, to stir some sort of internal war in Israel. That's what they really want to do. Our enemies want to weaken us from within because they understand they can't do it from outside. They want to weaken us from within.
That seems to be what's happening in America as well. But I know very troubling issues. What is the top number one anti-Semitism concern? Is it the threat from within? Or there's some other forms of anti-Semitism that you're concerned about? I know BDS, and there's I don't know if you've been aware, there's a Jewish cemetery desecration in Vilnius, Lithuania, but it just seems to be worldwide accelerating.
Yes, I lived and worked in New York City, and I opened up an Israeli business, and they knew there was an Israeli business. And the day I opened, I had these BDS demonstrators demonstrating outside of the business, and it started with boycott Israel. It very quickly went into kill the Jews, like 5-6 minutes from boycott Israel to kill the Jews. Then we had to call the police. So I felt anti-Semitism, but still I think if you talk about the state of Israel, what's happening within, the division that's happening within the Israeli society, the polarization process, that's the main concern I have for our next generation.